So we will exit the executive session, re-enter the regular meeting at 6:17. Paul, go ahead.
This is Paul Polito, attorney for the district. No action was taken during the executive session, and the items discussed during the executive session were within the items discussed or mentioned within the agenda.
Thank you. We're gonna move the next item. We're gonna move up the let me see. Let me get to the right place here. In new business, we're gonna establish an agreement, operating agreement within the town of Kiowa while our council is present. So we will address that next on the agenda. Kim, you want to start with that?
Actually, I had given the establishing agreement, well, do we need to make, I need direction on how to move forward.
On renewing it, establishing it, how to move forward with.
How to handle, the violation letter that went out.
Oh, we'll do that in new business.
Oh, okay, so you want
Yes,
to start
we'll
with the agreement first?
Yeah, we'll do that in
Okay.
new business. We'll start the
Okay.
establishing agreement here. We'll do that in new business.
So I sent,
Or actually old business, that part. So-
okay, so I have been sending a lot of authority documentation to our attorneys to get them brought up to date as to who we are, what we are, and our agreements that we already have in place. And there was a discussion at the last meeting. There seems to be different interpretations of the establishing agreement that I asked them to review, and then some things in the operating agreement that have them review that and see if there's anything there that they, I know that I will tell you, the town attorney wants to have another work session with you guys to look at revising the operating agreement. So there's that. So I had them get involved with reviewing them from you guys' side first. So, Jill, did you have input?
Are we talking about the amended and restated Kiowa
Yes.
water and wastewater dated June 4th,
The
2013?
June, because that's the only one we have in a complete form.
So
it's
what's
a-
this one? That's the amended and restated operating agreement on November 14th, 2023.
So the operating agreement is the agreement between the town and the water authority. The establishing agreement is the establishment of the Kiowa water and wastewater.
Okay, got it.
So, and that's the only one we have available to us. We've never been able to locate the first original agreement. So we only have individual amendments, but this is the only document that was restated. So it's the closest we have to the original agreement verbiage.
And are all of the amendments that have been made to this
Were made,
included in this?
yes,
Okay. So this is updated.
this is the last known updated.
June 4th, 2013.
Okay. Okay. So if the town has discussion with the establishing agreement and, yeah.
Town has nothing with the establishing agreement.
Or, I mean, the
The
operating
operating.
agreement, if they want to do a work session on that. I mean, how far do we need to go tonight in covering this?
Well, there were some things I discussed with them today about the operating agreement that they reviewed it. Did you have discussion about the operating agreement, Paul?
With the town?
With the current operating agreement in place, did you have areas of the operating agreement
Oh.
that you found?
Right.
Need clarifying?
Any sort of inconsistencies or whatnot within the operating agreement itself. You know, going through this, I didn't have much of a problem. There are certain items that I can address with the board right now. Minor revisions to this agreement. But as far as consistency and clarity, within the agreement itself, I don't have a major problem with it, but I'm happy to listen to whatever the town has to say, whatever sort of reservations they have, and we can certainly take care of these in a work session. I do have some comments on the establishing agreement, but yeah, I'm happy to get into a little bit of what I found within the operating agreement, but you know, I don't have any real substantive comments on it at this point. I thought it actually read pretty clearly to me.
And I have none right now either. That was not a request put forth by myself. It was a request put forth by her, and I would rather her discuss that with our board
Mhm.
at the next meeting. And get a consensus of the board.
Okay, that makes sense.
On that agreement. So
Yeah.
let her discuss it with them.
And then while we're at it, what are your concerns on the establishing agreement?
Right. And, you know, maybe this isn't as much a concern as it is just some clarification regarding section 104, which is on page 4 of the establishing agreement. As you know, I just wanted to provide a little bit of interpretation, my own interpretation as to the appointments to the board, what is appropriate as far as a specified majority, and where the board sits now. So if you look at page 5, under the agreement, it's paragraph 3. It states, with the exception of the initial board appointed in May 2013, the majority of the persons serving as directors of the board shall A, be qualified pursuant to section 104(2)(a) of this agreement, and it defines that as a specified majority. Now, you know, obviously the main intent is to have a specified majority where you have a majority of the board members that are qualified pursuant to 104(2)(a), which means that the member is a resident of the town. Now, you know, that's not all there is to it, though. 3B on page 5 provides for the event of a vacancy, and C provides for an appointment if a specified majority is not available. And in this case, you know, if a specified majority is not available, you know, meaning that, you know, cannot find, there's not a qualified willing nominee for the appointment to constitute a majority, then the board, in that case, may appoint another qualified person. Now, within subsection C, it doesn't limit the qualified person under section 104(2)(a), like paragraph A does. So under 3C, a qualified person doesn't have to be a resident of the town, but it can also be somebody who qualifies under 2B or 2C, meaning that you own real property within the boundaries of the town, or that you're a natural person who's been designated by the owner of a real property within the boundaries. I am happy to answer any sort of questions regarding this, but I at least wanted to provide my own interpretation as to this agreement and how it impacts the election of board members in certain circumstances.
I did tell Paul, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
I did tell Paul that there was conflicting understandings amongst the board members to some of the language. There was a interpretation that there's definitions at the front that should define the entities or different things throughout the document. But then some felt that like halfway through the document, they were using different names. And the information that it was giving seemed to be referring to one board instead of the board it should be referring to.
Correct.
Paul didn't feel when he read it, he didn't find it to do that. So maybe you want to point that out to him.
Yeah, I was looking specifically for that and didn't really find anything within the establishing agreement that necessarily ran afoul. I mean, I can get nitpicky and suggest certain changes, particularly to the definition of service area and territory within the authority. But as far as the consistency of the use of board and authority, I didn't really see too much of an issue. But if anybody wants to point anything out, I mean, I'm happy to obviously look at this.
So the one thing that I saw here is the board of directors of the authority.
Mhm.
And it does then identify the town as a separate party, means the town of Kiowa. So when I read this agreement, and when directors are appointed to this board, the way I read it is they would be appointed by the board, and the way I interpret that, that is the Kiowa Wastewater Authority, not the town. So I think that when I first saw that, I'm like, well, the town appointed me to this board, but the way I read this, it should be appointed by the wastewater authority.
I see. Okay.
Because
I
it
wasn't
never
looking for that.
says, it never says the party, which refers to the town.
Yeah.
It just refers to the board. So that's the way I interpret it. Yeah, so I just think that there needs to be some clarification there for future appointments to this board. Because the way I read this establishing agreement, it says the board, which is the wastewater authority. So,
I see. So
And
I will
then-
say I wasn't looking for that, and yes, I completely agree with you there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I explained to him today, historically, people will apply to the board, to this board. They'll come in and you guys will vet their applications, you'll interview them, then you guys make a recommendation based off of those people that you interview to the town board, then it goes to the town board, and then the town board makes a motion to accept your recommendations, and then at the same time, which I think they did with Brett and Laurel,
Mhm.
they gave them the oath of office to your board. So, as it's been explained to me when I started here, that's the way it was always done. It started here, then it went to our board, they approved it by motion and vote, and then they gave the oath of office, and then it was done. And the next meeting, that person sat at this table. And then I explained to him that this became a source of contention with insurance at the beginning of 2023, when we were in renewal process, because they were questioning what the connection was between the town and the water authority that allowed the town to carry the water authority on their insurance. Well, it's always been my understanding that it's that connection there. That's really the only connection the two boards have. So I
I
sent
see.
the insurance, these agreements. And they did a review of all of them. They did I sent them the receivership information. And based off of all that documentation, they were fine with that connection there, which has allowed us to continue in the same fashion we have for a long, long time. But then it came up again recently with appointment of members. So that's why Paul and Colin have reviewed it
Mhm.
for, I don't know, amendment, revision, if it needs to be a better, there needs to be clarification in it. I don't know. So.
Yeah, I mean, and given that, then yes, I would agree. I think it does need an amendment at that point, because yeah, you're both 100% right. Yeah, I mean, simple as that. The board was previously defined clearly as talking about the town board. So yes, it does. I agree. So yeah, I mean, this is certainly worth going to the town and at least, amending this to clear that up.
Would it be cleared up as the town board appoints it or the authority appoints?
I don't know.
We had to figure that out.
They have to be, in order to cover the KWWA with insurance, does there have to be that?
There has to be a connection there. If that connection is broken, then we're no longer allowed to carry them
To
on the
insure them.
insurance policy.
Yeah. So it could be the town board.
which in this, it refers to them as the party, so it just needs to be identified properly.
Yeah, and I would just suggest saying, the board of the town of Kiowa.
Party means the town of Kiowa,
Right, that's what
so
I
you
meant.
really need to say the Kiowa.
Need to be more specific in the,
I think we should
terminology.
also include
Yeah.
somewhere in there. Nowhere in here does it say much about the membership in terms of. It's got when the officers are elected or. Things like that. Seems like it should be more clearly spelled out.
You mean rather than just dictating there's two,
I mean, when the election of officers, that should be in there every January or whatever it is, that's not in there.
oh, it is. Well, really, it's written in there, I could find it, but it's at will. So if like with us, we can only change. We can only elect a mayor pro tem on a general election year. Where it's written in here, I have to go back and find it, but it does dictate that you guys can elect officers. At any time.
Yeah, on page, the bottom page 6, number 4, said.
Oh, yeah,
Designated
officers.
officers, right,
from time to time is the verbiage.
right. And we could put verbiage in there that says, upon appointment, upon, because they're 2-year and 4-year terms. So upon the appointment of a new board, do you elect new officers? I mean, we could clarify that. So that when your new board's appointed, then you elect new officers. That could be clarified pretty easy, I think.
Yes.
I tell you what I'd like to see in here,
Mhm.
and this hasn't been approached yet. But you have a president that left this board in December of 2023. And no request has ever been put into that person for what records they have in their possession to this board. When the last president submitted their resignation to this office, I got a whole box of records for the water authority from them. But when that president left this board, no documents of any sort or request for such was ever submitted.
Why would an individual on this board hold documents for this authority? Aren't those documents, with the establishing agreement of the town, shouldn't those documents be held by that, the secretary of the board, which would be the town and, the
You would think.
Sacha now.
You would think,
I
but
mean, I
there
would
was
think that
multiple
he-
situations, and I will tell you, there's been multiple situations over the last couple years. Where we don't have documents in this office, but that person found them in their possession and brought them forward.
Yeah, I think we should make.
And
it-
I also know from past conversations that, with a previous mayor of this town. He acknowledged to me that he gave town documents to that same person for safekeeping. So,
I think that we should amend the agreement, the establishing agreement that says all documentation will be kept in possession of the, independent record keeper, which should be the secretary of the board, not anybody on this authority, because this authority doesn't act as an individual, it acts as a board.
I agree.
It's probably why we can't find some of the old amended and restated agreements.
So I think that's easy to fix in this
Okay.
agreement.
Yeah, I'm just asking that it be added in there.
Yeah. That won't be a problem to amend that establishing agreement, Paul, to add that in.
Oh, no, not at all.
Yeah.
No, you can certainly do that.
Yeah, otherwise you can have documentation as you move forward when somebody leaves. I mean, what do they have in possession?
Oh, yeah. You can do it in a number of ways. You can do it in an establishing agreement. You can do it in a written policy for the authority, that you continuously update. Yeah, so multiple number of ways to skin the cat.
I think in the just to make this a transparent board, absolutely, they should be held in a central location, not with any member.
But if you're responsible for requests and
Yes.
things like that, then,
Well, that's where it's become very
well,
frustrating.
yeah, because then also you're getting accused of not
Yeah.
providing the documents, but you can't say, well, you never had them. You don't know where they're at.
And when situations come up like this, or with the enormous amount of FOIA requests we've started getting, that's when it comes to light that we don't have them. And if I hadn't had that conversation with a previous mayor concerning another subject, I'm looking for records from him. He's like, well, you could just go to them. I gave them all the records that time when I left office. I gave them all the records for safekeeping. I'm like, for the town? Yes. They're the best person to give them to at the time. I'm like, okay. They're not employed by the town.
How do you go about getting them?
I mean,
you can
there's
ask.
requests.
But it's easy for them to say, I don't have them.
Yeah.
You can do.
I mean, short of getting a subpoena and going in there yourself, there's no way. to
Paul,
do
what's
it.
your advice on that?
A public record request to an individual who used to be a member. I'll admit, I haven't seen this. But I mean, first of all, yes, I would, if you haven't asked for them, obviously ask for them. If they're not, if he doesn't, if he says he doesn't have anything, I don't know if you can subpoena somebody outside of a court case. You may be able to. If it's not in relation to any sort of dispute, I don't know if you can subpoena somebody for documents. I would.
Friendly
I
request.
certainly a friendly request, and I can get back to you and let you know if you can issue a public records request to this person. It'll probably take me 5 to 10 minutes to figure that out. And I can I'll send a follow-up email to the board. Just make sure not to reply all, but yeah, I'll give you an idea of whether you can actually issue a public records request. But I wouldn't necessarily resort to that until you just simply ask them for them.
I have a question about all these agreements that we've been looking at. Should each one of us be reviewing these and making our notes and then having another little session, or even during one of our meetings, just so we can all say, okay, I found this issue was a problem, so that we can thoroughly go through these things, so when we can revise these, we're talking about everything that we've all, as a group, as a board, have figured out or seen.
We could have a work session.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because right now we're just picking and we all haven't really, at least I haven't gone with this as thoroughly as I used to. I mean, I've picked up certain things as I've reviewed them at different times, but I haven't really said, okay, I'm gonna go through each one of these with a fine tooth comb and make big notes about exactly all the same thing, and then we can sit down in a session and we all say, oh, we all noticed this, this is, or discuss it,
And then we can bring them to the.
and bring it to the attorney then, and then we
Work
can.
session is open to the public, but you don't have to let the public talk.
Correct.
So,
Correct. Yeah, but then we can present to our attorney and then they can
Right.
decide how we're gonna revise these, but I think there's so many fingers have been in these agreements, and like I said, whoever was doing it was not thinking about what the terms they were using on the different entities, and they're all kind of confusing, and they're very confusing.
I
We
think,
need to get that all cleaned up, I think.
yeah, we need to clarify what you just said though, too, because I know with the town board, whether it's a work session or not, anything where the town convenes outside of a regular monthly meeting is considered a special meeting.
Right.
And with a special meeting, you always have to allow public comment.
you don't have to, you don't have to allow
Workshop.
public comment in a work session.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Are your work sessions considered special meetings like they are for the town?
Not a workshop. The workshop would, I mean, you still have to post it as a workshop, but it's not a. I mean, I don't believe it's a special meeting. You just post it as a workshop that, we're talking about this.
Yeah, and I'm just making sure that we're doing it the right way, because
Yeah.
I didn't at one time either, and then I found out by
The county does
what's
them
in
all the
place for
time.
us by our charter.
They're having a work session on the budget coming up.
Right.
But it's not, that might be a special meeting, I can't say for sure, but when they have a work session, you can go, but you can't talk.
Okay, so our charter for the town dictates that anytime the board, a majority of the board is present, it's a quorum. And whether it's a work session or whatever reason, it has to be titled a special meeting. That's why we have to do it that way.
There's nothing our establishing agreement says we have.
Okay, that's all I want to make sure that we're good and we're not
And you
violating
do know you
anything
don't have to allow public comment.
statutorily.
I mean, Jeff Roberts will tell you that at CFOIC, but if you allow public comment, then you have to treat everybody the same.
Yes.
You don't, I mean, you don't even have to allow public comment at a BOCC meeting if you don't want, but if you do, everybody gets 3 minutes or whatever.
Right.
So,
Absolutely right.
so,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a courtesy.
yeah.
I want to go back really quick. So you cannot issue a public records request to an individual, even if they used to be a member of a public body. And like I initially thought, a subpoena has to be related in some way to a lawsuit or even pre-suit, which obviously just isn't the case here. So my advice would be ask him for the documents. If he is not providing them for whatever reason, let me know, and I could look into whether, as a governmental entity, you may have additional powers here, investigatory powers, but I don't know what that is off the top of my head, and I don't necessarily want to charge you for me researching that if there's no need to do it. So my advice would be, let's see if he'll give the documents, and if not, we'll go from there.
Yeah, no problem. We'll pursue that.
Okay,
And should that be written in a written form rather than verbal?
I think we can do it verbal first.
You think so?
Yeah.
Don't
yeah,
verbal it.
whatever you think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll let- That's why Donna gets the big bucks.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, keep it friendly at first, always a good thing.
Okay.
That's why Donnie's gonna do it.
I think a work session would be a good idea with these two documents.
Excellent. We'll set up a work session going forward and thanks for all your input, Paul, and we'll set up a work session and let you know on that. So
Perfect, perfect. All right, well, I'll wait to hear from you all on that. That's all the comments I had and all the agreements. So I will leave you be unless anybody has any questions or anything for me before I go.
I think we're good. Thank you again.
Thank
All
you.
right, thanks for having me here, everyone. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll get back into the regular agenda. We'll go with the financial report. Money market account.
Do we wanna finish the rest of new business while we're in new
We'll
business?
just go from the top and finish that at the bottom.
Okay.
See if we can get through this before 7.
Okay.
We can talk fast. We
Okay,
can talk fast.
so, you have some revised reports attached to your financials, Teresa, and I, conferred today, there was some revisions that needed to be made to the initial finance reports that I sent out to you yesterday. The attached, individual transaction reports, will show the areas that Teresa and I discussed. I'll just tell you what those are real quick, if you want me to do, it. Teresa, are you good with that?
Is this the account quick report at the end?
So you're gonna look at your profit and loss first. Sasha, stapled them all together.
Yes, sorry.
Profit and loss on top, your balance sheet from second, and then the individual transaction reports that fall right after that. Under 4999 miscellaneous income, Teresa, it doesn't really clarify what your miscellaneous income is, just so you're clear. $92.74 was the charges given to Diane Miller for a large records request pertaining to KWWA. 6731, line item 6731, infrastructure sewer. Teresa noticed some variance in that amount. It went up $5,000 from last month. And that was due to Iconic's billing on that Farmer State Bank issue. We paid them. Line item 6732, infrastructure water. That went up about $3,000. And that was due to Paul's charges regarding flushing the hydrants and purchasing the new hydrant locks and keys. Line item 6733 under trash, that went up by $450.33 from last month. And that was due to my miscategorizing, some items. So they've been recategorized appropriately. And that report will reflect what it is now attached to it. 6740 specific use supplies. Last month it was $2,059.92, and this month it went down. And again, that was due to some miscategorized items, so that's getting corrected. 6742 Core and Main. That went down from $10,330.33 to $8,819.34. Cleaned up a lot of this report, miscategorized items, and I did put a check today out of RVS, which would further increase that amount. And I accidentally had the Amazon charge for your keyboards that go to your iPads under that. So that's been moved appropriately. Line item 6805 under postage, that went up by $870.16 from last month. That's a lot of postage. So we looked at that again, and there were actually three duplicate charges in there that were deleted, and a Visa card payment that was miscategorized. So that brought it down to an appropriate amount. You will have a transaction report showing what your interest paid for sewer, 7710 and 7720 interest for water. So those are split out for the quarterly payments. So you can see how that number is calculated. And but then, last month's meeting, you guys made a motion and requested that I look into moving money over into the money market account. And that I also do some discussions with Farmer State Bank regarding that money market account, and the interest rate that you're currently getting. Farmer State Bank listened and they took to heart. I gave them what Laurel sent us as far as what she's getting from her bank. And they not only met it, they exceeded it. So, they did move you up to a 5%. And that netted you. It took you from $16.77 interest earned monthly to, 2 weeks after moving that money to $522.88.
Good.
So that's gonna be a good move.
Thank you.
I read through the water bond that you sent me. I've not seen the sewer bond. We are supposed to have accounts for section 14 and 16. We're supposed to have a water revenue bond reserve account. And that's how it's supposed to be labeled. And it should have $163,992 in it, because that's how much we pay them annually. And since that's 10 years ago that we set that up, that should be in there now. We were supposed to have been putting $4,100 into that every quarter for the last 10 years. We're also supposed to have a short-lived assets reserve account labeled like that on our statement. I can't believe that the auditors haven't.
So that's not labeled on here, but it's in our audit report, because that's not an account that,
Well, the
I
bond
would
says,
move money
the
into.
bond, if you look at the bond, it says that you're supposed to have that account with that title. And it's supposed to have $9,480 placed in it each year. And there's also some letters back and forth. Spencer Fain or some, whoever it
probably
was.
since we're paying.
And it also lists in there that these accounts were supposed to be labeled and in our financial documents. I haven't seen the water bond or the sewer bond, so I don't know what it says, but. And then there's different requirements for when it can be used. But basically, the water revenue bond reserve account is if you're gonna default, then you've got a year's worth of money in it.
Correct.
And it also says if we're gonna invest any of the extra money, it has to be 1/8% higher than what we're paying in interest. Which obviously with 5% because we're paying 3.5, so. So we can invest the extra, but it has to exceed that, but. I think we need to.
Well,
look
you
at
were
that.
only getting 1%
Yeah,
because of the amount that was in there.
So can you do just, on the balance sheet, on the, profit and loss balance sheet, can you do a subheading under the money market to label those accounts with those amounts?
I would think you could, but I think they should be there and they should be labeled because they're part of our agreement with the. For the bond.
So,
Okay.
if we, yeah, if we
Well,
just
we got-
I'll
establish
take a
those,
look at that.
yeah, under your profit and loss, just
Yeah.
establish a line item under that, but you can do it under a sub of your money market account.
Section 14
Yeah.
and section 16 in the water bond tell you where you're supposed to label them. And then section 16 also tells you the priorities for where the monies are to be placed. The first money goes here, the second money goes here. It's all spelled out in terms of. So I'm sure they would like to see
Right.
the money in those accounts because we do have a pretty big.
Well, we just had a recent conversation with them because of an issue we had with somebody calling USDA. So
Yeah.
they're aware that there's a lot of things that we're not currently showing.
Mhm.
Their verbiage to me was, they're aware of it. The payments have never been missed. They're always made on time.
Right.
So they understand the struggles that their authority is under currently and that they've been under historically. And because we've never been late, or ever missed a payment, they have always chosen to overlook those things. And they're not gonna call issue with it,
Right.
but at some point, we need to be compliant
Right,
in everything that
right. And that,
is
that,
required of
that'd be
us.
just a line item in your accounting.
Yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
where you relabel it, but it's still under the money market, still invested in the money market, but it's just labeled into the proper.
The proper
Proper.
accounts.
Line item, yeah, absolutely.
Get back to,
Yeah.
the balance sheet on the 2600, 2610, 2620, 2630. We talked about those last time. How come you can't just have bond, principal water, bond, principal sewer, and then the interest, have the the principal and the interest just in 4 different, instead of having the plus and the minus.
Where are you at?
On page, on the balance sheet, the last page, 2600, 2610, 2620.
Okay.
We talked about those last time and what they meant, because I didn't understand.
The-
Why do you have
The
positive? and
2620 and 2630 are line items that are for the auditor. The auditor put those in place. I'm not an auditor. I don't know how to explain that.
negative? Yeah, and the bond principal water, I mean, that 6 million. The original loan was only 3 million and something. So is that including the interest and the principal? Must be.
That's
I mean,
what's
I just
currently.
think it's unclear.
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
So this was a source of contention, a lot of discussion during the audit process. That the accountant with QuickBooks that we worked with kept bringing up. And then we kept having discussions with the auditor concerning this, because it seemed as if it was doubling the way that he has it in there. The journal entry he required us to make in there now shows it doubling what the balance is on there. He wasn't willing to budge on that. He would not change it. So I will tell you this, because this is gonna be part of my report. And I do feel like it was some of the contention that went back and forth during this audit season. Ronnie Farmer has decided to retire. He will not be doing our audit moving forward. He did give us a list of auditors, that I'm working with right now, trying to find another one. Which is more than we had when I came in 3 years ago. So we will have a new auditor next year. Ronnie's a very smart person. He speaks a language I don't speak. And sometimes it's like that when you have people with that.
Yeah, I just think it'd be easier if you just had.
Yeah.
Principal and interest.
So
We own
these
both
are
of
things
them.
that I've noted, and there are things that need to be clarified and cleaned up when we get a new auditor.
And I'd like to make another suggestion. I'm sorry, I know that you guys weren't here when all this was set up, so I'm not trying not to be picky, but.
Yeah.
On the profit and loss each month, if we could add a column, a variance column. Okay, this time of the year, and QuickBooks will do this because we did it on the library board.
I may need you to show me.
Huh?
When we moved to QuickBooks, that's the first introduction I've had to QuickBooks, so I may
Jim-
need you to show me.
Jim can help you with that.
Okay,
He's good
Yeah.
with QuickBooks, but you have a variance column that shows. This time of the year, you should have spent, $10,000.
okay.
And then a percentage column. So what percent of your budget have you spent so far? And you just put those columns. to
Okay,
the
so we're
right.
doing that manually in QuickBooks.
Mhm.
I said I've been doing that manually in Excel outside of QuickBooks. I've been
You
taking
can do
our
it-
budget.
You can do it in QuickBooks, because we.
Okay.
We did it at the library.
You should show me that. I'd rather you show me that than pay them to show me that, so I don't want to.
Because I'd like to see without having to sit here and figure it out in my head,
Right,
how much of our budget we've spent.
Right.
right. See where we're at, actually. with
Right, where we're at, yeah.
Comparison.
Every month, yeah.
So we need a motion to approve the financial report.
It's so moved.
Sir,
Were you done?
I'm done.
Okay.
Sorry.
Motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve financial report. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion on table, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay.
When do we talk about the budget, the draft budget for 2025? Is
So
that,
we already talked about the draft budget, September. It will come up again in December meeting
Okay.
to finalize.
okay, Paul, you're up.
Okay, the only thing I have is that the pump that we sent in to get repaired will be ready next week, and we will be installing it on the November 20th for the wastewater plant.
Awesome. That was easy.
Yeah. We like those easy ones.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
be me. Okay. Oh, no, I guess it's you.
Or, do we all have a monthly report from Paul? Does anybody have a question about the monthly report?
Yeah, he submitted one.
Okay. Quickly, project needs assessment again submitted on October 1st, still no response from CDPG. I'm still waiting for a response from them. I submitted the third quarter, report to DOLA advising the same. The lawsuit that Tim Kraft filed, toward the town official custodians of records for the town and the water authority. Case number 30029 in district court was dismissed on October 31st with prejudice, meaning it cannot be filed in the same court again, due to this court making a final determination of the case's legal and factual issues. In your Apple iPads and Apple Business Manager, your new domain, you all had to have a domain created. Teresa and I talked about this. I didn't want to be responsible for what you are moving forward. So you are now KWWA.com. So when your email addresses are created, when we get those iPads, it will be your first initial and your last name at KWWA.com. I'm still waiting on verification from Apple Business Manager, to order the iPads. The keyboards are already here. That's all I got.
Okay, on to me.
On to you.
Okay. You have the system's total report. So you can kind of take a look at that. And I included the graphs, so you can look at the comparisons. Big things last month, we only, with all the shut off notices I had sent out, we only had one person that didn't pay. And then it took him a couple days. He was out of water for like 4 days and then he paid up. So he was reconnected. We still have the one from the previous month, who has not paid and does not have services, but it's my understanding they also don't have any electrical, that kind of stuff. This month I sent out 4 warning letters and 4 shut off letters. So fortunately the number seems to be coming down as people, are figuring that out. None of them have paid yet, but they still have, till the 25th. So, nothing super crazy there. And I'll just pop into Diamond Maps real quick, since we left that off last month. Diamond Maps is kind of a cool thing, and it's something that I would like you to consider, think about. Because right now, minus Paul, having all the knowledge of where everything is, and the maps and everything. Like, if you asked me necessarily where they all were, but I don't necessarily know that. So there is a company that will come in, and this came from Scott, with the water stuff. He's really helpful.
Colorado Rural Water.
Yeah, and I was super excited about this. Anyway, there's a company that will come in and map it. And they will go through, and so then you can, with this software, then we would know exactly like with this legend, it'll tell me exactly like where every single meter is. It'll tell me what size they are, which is nice. So if we have one go crazy, it'll tell me where all the shutoffs are. So if we have a break, then we know, if someone calls, it's obvious they can be like, well, where's the shutoff? We can't get a hold of Paul. Oh, we can tell you it's exactly right here. It'll tell you where the sewer manholes are, the sewer lines, storm sewer lines.
So Scott, if you don't mind me interjecting.
No,
Scott is doing
interject.
our asset,
Yeah.
asset study for the water authority. He's gonna tell us what we have. Infrastructure wise, supply wise,
Right.
everything. Where this is beneficial. I, in my heart, no offense, Paul, I do not think one person should hold all the keys, should hold all the information. If Paul dropped off the face of the earth today, I can honestly tell you, none of us would know where anything's at. Paul has maps in his possession, that have not been updated, for a long, long time. And they're only in Paul's possession. They're not in his office. They're not in our head. They're not on our computer system. And again, we're in that same situation of not having record of what we have. And I think a process like this, would be very beneficial to the board. We need to do some more research. The Colorado Rural Water Association said it's not a costly system.
It's like
It is
$20 a month.
long process to get it all in there. But I do think anything that we have right now, as far as mapping, needs to be memorialized in a program like this moving forward.
And do we have initial costs on that mapping? On that establishment of
I do not remember what he said. I would have to go back and look at my notes.
so
I don't think it was super expensive, though. It seemed really reasonable.
So I think that we need a number before, I
Yeah.
think it's a
Yes.
great idea.
Okay.
I think we need a number
Okay.
on initial mapping of what. the
Okay.
cost would be,
And I
because
will
it
get that
looks
for
like- It
you.
looks like user costs in the futures real cheap, but.
Yeah.
Well, and for this one, for example, a community that served less than 2,000 can get an unlimited use subscription for less than the cost of 2 users. So because we're a tiny town, we can get,
Yeah,
a really cheap deal for this, so I will go back and look at my notes.
and if we
and
can get a
and
formal quote for it. on
Yeah.
what
Okay.
the charges.
Yeah.
I will do that.
Once it's implemented, it's gonna be very similar to the county's GIS
Right.
mapping that
I
they've
think
got.
it's a great idea.
Yes.
Amazing.
Anyway, I just thought to tie in, and then if we need to know where something is, this would be a really handy thing to have.
Okay. Excellent.
Okay, I will get you a quote on the mapping and stuff.
So under our old business, Brett, we will entertain the motion on what was discussed in our executive session.
Into the old business.
Yeah, right now.
I say, I want to make a motion that we as a board hire a water attorney to look into the legalities and the procedures that we need to go forward with. What else do we need to
Not to
do?
exceed.
Not to exceed the amount of $9,000 in legal costs.
Good enough. Do I have a second?
Second,
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion of the motion on the table? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to new business.
No, hold on. I need direction on how to handle that violation.
Oh, yeah, sorry, that should be an old business also.
That's, yes.
That'd be another.
Uh-huh.
I will make a motion to, let me just get the name of the right person.
Prodigy.
Prodigy excavating.
To, send a letter to Prodigy Excavating requesting, payment of the, water used and the meter fees. And that the penalties will be deferred, pending, outcome of our
Bulk water.
bulk water authority in the, or our bulk water policies. Do I have a second?
Review of
Yes,
this.
sir.
I'll make a second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion, of the motion on the table? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion on the table, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll get the next one under new business.
I'm talking about finance policy?
Yeah, but the other motion for the,
Yes, sir.
yeah. Um, Finance policy, go ahead.
I would make a suggestion for the sake of time, maybe move this under the work session too. It's a long document. I want to make sure everybody's vetted it completely.
It needs a lot of.
Yeah, and I think that maybe we should
To fit
include this
us.
in the work session.
do we all have that?
Yeah, it was in the
It's in your
packet.
packet.
Okay, what is it again? We're talking about
It's
that.
the
Finance
financial.
policy.
Oh, fine, I
What
got
you're
it.
looking at is the town of Kiowa's finance policies and
Oh,
procedures.
We
Yeah.
talked about it a little
Oh,
last month. And, yeah, I think that'd be a good idea for another work session.
Yeah.
Okay,
So we can
so we're gonna
actually
table
fully
it till the
discuss.
work
So, do
session.
I have a motion to table that till the work session?
I'll make a motion. Okay,
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion on the table, aye? Any opposed? Motion carries. Also the establishing agreement, we can also make a motion to, move that to the work session.
Yes, sir. Both of those.
And the operating,
All of it, everything.
Yep, can I have a motion as such?
move that we table the establishing agreement and the operating agreement with town of Kiowa until work study session.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion, of the motion on the table? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion on the table, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I would like to add a C. I would like to make a motion to suspend the sales of bulk water pending revision of our bulk water policies.
Second,
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion on the table, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Any correspondence or discussion that we need to cover? It?
Nope.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
move to adjourn at 7:07.
Second?
second.
Any further discussion? Motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned at 7:07.